these are like legitimate side hustles that you can actually get involved. However, I need to actually make a disclaimer at this point that depending on the society where you work in, it's actually very important to find out what guidance has been made out your regulatory body concerning some of these side hustles. Then also to make your investigations, to do your research properly about being able to, get into some of these side hustles, just to understand, both the legal aspect of this job and how it could affect your job as a doctor depending on what society you live in. Achieving financial freedom is something that is important to everybody, and I don't think doctors should be left out. I know that people, a lot of people think that, oh, doctors are well paid, oh, doctors are rich. Yes, the society where I come from, people just have the assumption that, oh, doctors are rich, whereas there are some other guys that actually earn much more than doctors and nobody screams about it. But then that's just not the concern. The concern really is that in the true sense of it, doctors are not always well paid. Sometimes doctors just earn enough, to get by. And sometimes they have to do extra work, extra shifts in order to get more to be able to meet their financial need. And also, in recent times, everybody is talking about financial freedom. Everyone is talking about early retirement. And I don't think that doctors should also be left out of that. Yes, doctors also deserve, early retirement and, financial freedom. But then working a salaried job may likely not provide you that opportunity, especially because in most societies, a lot of doctors work salaried jobs. Okay, so in today's discussion, we are going to be talking about some of the side hustles that you as a doctor can actually get into in this 2025, and in order just to improve your income. And for some of them, they might require like your medical knowledge that you already have, your medical skills that you already have. And for some of them, you might just have to do like maybe extra training or just get an extra qualification for maybe for a few months or a few years. And for some of them, your medical knowledge is not really required. It just depends on what works for you and what you really want to achieve. Some you can do from the convenience of your home, and some others might be more time demanding. So it just depends on what you want, and so let's just get right into this discussion today. Hello, my name is Blessing and I'm a doctor currently practicing in the UK. And here on this channel, I create content for doctors. I share about my life as a doctor in training here in the UK, and also about my life as an immigrant doctor. And I also share about wellness. I talk about living a healthy lifestyle, nutrition, and fitness. Okay, so you're welcome to become a part of the community. Feel free to be a part of us. We would like you to, join the community so we can all grow together. So just like I said, there's going to be in two categories. There are some that, it's more like you're already a doctor, and just being a doctor is qualifies you to actually do that side also, because it's just your medical knowledge that is really needed for it. So more like you already have the skill that is required for it. And that's the first category we are going to be talking about. So the first in this category will be locum. So in a place like the UK, I don't know if that's a word for it in some other parts of the world, but here in the UK there's something we call locum, and locum is more like doing extra shift. So more like you have your regular rota, your regular shift, and then it's possible maybe for one reason a job comes up and you are maybe not working at that time, and so you can actually take that up, do that job, and then you get paid. Your rate you are paid is usually more than your regular pay, like if you're doing your regular everyday job. So this is the reason why it's actually sometimes quite attractive to people. But then there are some other things around locum, like the taxes, which is beginning to discourage a whole lot of people. But I still feel like if you're able to do enough locum, irrespective of how much tax is going to be taken from it, you will still be able to get some extra money if you have that time. However, if you're somebody that, you want to have more of your time to yourself, then I'm not sure locum might be the best way, because it requires you to be a doctor, to be in the hospital, to deliver that service. So you might want to actually consider some other thing. But for those who are willing, who have the time, and who are okay to do locum is actually one way that you can earn extra income as a doctor. Now the other thing is what I call online medical courses. Now this is actually becoming popular because for some exams, maybe like licensing exams, and for example the PLAB exam and the USMLE, there are so many there are so many ventures that, that is just what they do. They coach people for these exams. They help people to prepare for this exam with their online courses, tutorials, materials, study materials, question banks, and a whole lot of that. So that is actually a something you can delve into. However, I think it's quite time demanding, and I know that for some persons who have gone into this, they've had to at some point like quit medicine to really go into it full time. But I feel like there's still something you can start by the side. You don't have to completely quit your job. I think it's something you can still do by the side, depending on how much time you have available to you, because you don't have to be there physically. A lot of times there are a lot of virtual classes. There's so many online materials. I think it's actually something you can do if you are knowledgeable about about a certain field or certain exam, or maybe you have done excellently well in that exam and you kind of understand the tricks and the tricks around doing very well in the exam. Then this is something that you can actually consider. You could do telling people how to improve their chances of being successful in that exam. Now the third one is to go into private practice. So I know that in some countries it might not be so easy to go into private practice until you have kind of become like a senior, because it's quite expensive to start up, and a whole lot of that. But I know that back home in Nigeria, people could work in private practice, just like locoming in private practice in order to get like extra earning. So so that is something you could also consider. But then in the meantime, you also have to keep in mind that you need to have the qualification for you to go into private practice. Now the fourth thing is medical writing. So there are some blogs, some websites, some publications that they would prefer like a medical doctor, someone who is medically oriented, to do these write-ups for them, like freelance writing, because they know these terms, they know how to put those words together, compared to somebody who doesn't have like a medical background. You may just look for doctors who do like write-ups, who are able to help with such publications, and so they get paid depending on who you work with. I think I used to have a colleague who used to do that. So she does like freelance writing, and then she gets paid for that. And so that's actually something you can consider, especially if you're somebody that you're skilled in writing. And you can do that from the convenience of your room. You don't have to step out anywhere. You probably just need your computer. There are so many platforms online these days. I'm sure that if you do your research, you should be able to find some that will be able to pay you very well, for doing an excellent job. So the fourth point is content creation. And so when it comes to content creation, I think I really need to talk about this, and that is the fact that our medical knowledge is a skill. I feel like sometimes it's like doctors do not actually understand that their medical knowledge is a skill. Like it's not a general knowledge. Not everybody knows what you know as a doctor, and even these days, the fact that a lot of people have access to Google, have access to YouTube, doesn't mean that they truly understand, like somebody who has gone to school and has spent so many years, studying medicine and then maybe delving into a certain specialty. That is a lot of skills that you have there. And so you could actually make some earning if you create, like content, maybe medically educated, maybe like content to educate people, to create health information, to create health awareness. It could be something like that, and you do that, and because you're a doctor, you don't need extra skill. You already have your medical knowledge, which is what is required, what is really needed for you to be able to do that. So you could actually just delve into that and make some money on the side. Really, you don't even have to leave your house to do that. There are so many platforms these days that are monetized, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. There are so many, LinkedIn. There are so many platforms that are monetized these days that you can actually earn money from when you create this medical content. So it's actually something that you can consider, and there are so many people who have really made a lot of money from this. A popular example is Ali Abdaal, and even for some person, they have actually ditched medicine for content creation because of for personal reasons and also for financial reasons, like because they are it's giving them more income compared to what medicine has to offer. So this is something you can actually try by the side. You can start it as a side also, and eventually it might grow to become something big that might require more of your attention, more of your time, and when you get to that phase, you will decide what next you want to do with it. I also need to mention that you don't have to create medical content as a doctor. If you have other skills or other areas where you're quite knowledgeable about, or that you are skilled in, you could also do that. For example, maybe you play an instrument, or maybe you're a singer, or maybe you know a lot about investment, about finances, maybe from your own personal experience, or about anything at all that you feel like I am knowledgeable enough and I can talk about this. You can also create content about it. It doesn't have to be medical content. It just has to be something you enjoy talking about, and something that you feel you can have a lot to talk about. So going over to the next section, and that's going to be like tech and innovation. Now, tech is a very popular field in recent times. You know, the whole AI innovations and, you know, everything happening in the tech space, you know, and a lot of people are really moving into, you know, tech. Doctors are leaving medicine to go into like full-time tech, you know. So it's actually quite attractive and is even looking like is the future. Yes, technology is the future right now. So if you have some knowledge about tech, even if it's not grounded enough, if you it might just need maybe for you to do extra, you know, researching, you know, get some extra certifications and, you know, a whole lot of that just to increase your competency or proficiency in, you know, tech related matters. That might be all you need to actually start a side hustle in tech. So you could actually do that, creating AI tools, you know, developing apps. You know, if you have any of such skills, then you should not be wasting that because of medicine. Another section that I feel is also important to talk about is when we talk about finance. So now we talk about, under this, we're talking about like real estate. Real estate is actually like a booming business now. And but then real estate definitely does require a lot of money. You know, like you just don't go into real estate without having anything. You probably have to save some money, have something already saved up. You know, someone was talking about a friend who was able to do some look home, and after a year was able to save up some money. And then this guy saw this old property, old Victorian property, you know, he bought it. And then it was more like, I think he had like two receptions, 2 bed, 2 reception, and he was able to convert it to like a 3 bed property. He modernized it and, you know, transformed the entire building, and then eventually put it out for sale, you know, and remortgaged it like a 3 bed property and then sold it. And he definitely made some money from that. And so imagine doing that over and over and over and over. That could be a lot of income from that person. So yes, it can be time consuming, but it's not something that you can't do. It depends on what time is available to you, or if you can even find people that you can delegate these jobs to, people that could work with you, you know, to make it easier for you, and so that you don't have to be the only one involved in it. So that could be a way, you know, to start. Maybe you have like a good friend or a partner that is not like into medicine, that can maybe have more time to themselves, who can supervise those kind of, you know, activities. Then it might actually be something you want to consider at this current time. Other thing you might want to consider in the aspect of finance is like going into business. So you could start from maybe a virtual store. These days people are able to start off like stores or shops online. There are various sites where you can actually get that done. Even a popular place like Amazon, people become sellers on Amazon, and I don't have a lot of details around it, but I know that you could become a seller, so have like a shop on Amazon and people buy from you. And please start with maybe a virtual store, and then if eventually you think that having a physical store is something that you can afford to do, then you might want to go ahead and start that up later. But in the meantime, while you're trying to sort things out, to start up with, I think having a virtual store is something that you can actually consider. So the next thing is speaking engagement. So as a doctor, there are certain organizations that might be willing to invite you for, you know, just to give a talk around a medical topic, maybe related to disease, innovations in medicine or something like that, and we'll be willing to pay you for such engagement. So it actually depends. If you're somebody who is skilled in such aspect, maybe public speaking, you have public speaking skills, and also coupled with your medical knowledge, then this is an aspect that you might want to explore. And this could also open you up to even bigger opportunities. So it depends. You might start with smaller gigs, maybe get something on LinkedIn. You can start with smaller gigs, and then you build up your portfolio, and as you build your portfolio, eventually that puts you in a better position to be able to get even bigger gigs. So the next thing that I want to talk about is medical survey. So I've been seeing a lot of you know, adverts about medical surveys, and I've heard some people like doctors talking about it recently. I don't have much details about it, but I think it's something you might want to research into. So I think it's more like maybe a certain organization wants to carry out a survey about a medically related topic, and they might actually need like the services of a doctor or healthcare professional to help them with such survey. And so when you get involved in such, they are actually willing to pay you, you know, for taking up that responsibility. And just like I said, for every of these side hustles, you also have to do your own personal research, you know, to understand the current situation of things, and most importantly, you know, guidelines around this side also. depending on which part of the world you're practicing as a doctor, you need to be sure what your regulating bodies have to say about them, are there guidelines about them. Then all of these are things you want to consider, you want to know about. Legal sides of these side issues, especially in relation to your job. For example, if you're like a doctor on a certain type of visa, there is a limitation on the number of hours you can do in terms of locum, and so you know you don't want to break that rule, you know you don't want to work beyond that number of hours, so you have to also find a way to adjust, do that adjustment and a whole lot of that. And so just understand all the framework around it, just be sure that you have the right information so you don't get into trouble. And so this is what I'm going to be ending this video. So peradventure you are a doctor or even any healthcare professional and you have done any of these side hustles, you've ventured into any of these side hustles, feel free to share your thoughts with us. What was your experience like? Was it difficult? Any success story? What were your challenges? What things or factors did you think was a setback? And we just want to hear from you. We want to know about your experience. And peradventure you're considering, you have done any of this, also feel free to tell us what are the things we should avoid, what mistakes should we avoid, and things to look out for. We want to hear from you. Yes, we want to learn from you. And so don't forget to like, to share, to comment, and also subscribe to this channel. Until I see you again, take care. Bye.